Hi, I'm Andy, aka googleman, and these are the basics of Google Classroom.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane!
It is googleman. Hi everyone, and welcome back to aka googleman. If you haven't done so already, please click on the subscribe button down below. If you like what you see in this video, then please give me a thumbs up and share this video with another teacher or even teachers that you think might like it too. Now, I've spoken about Google Classroom before when I talked about some of the top 5 features that I thought were best and some ways to deal with quizzes, and throughout this video I will link those above and below for you all as well. But I am aware that there are some people that haven't really used Google Classroom all that much and still are getting to grips with some of the basics. So what I wanted to do today is go through those basics from setting up your first classroom, getting kids into that class, and setting your first assignment. If that sounds like something that's going to be useful to you, let's jump in. Okay, let's start at the start. Setting up your very first classroom. Obviously this is my classroom that you are seeing on your screen with this, and there are a couple of classes in there. Now some of you might have classes that have been pre-populated by your school system, and some of you might have a completely blank classroom to start with, and either way all of these steps will be perfectly viable for you. So let's start by creating a new class. There's a plus symbol up in the top right hand corner of your screen. All you need to do is click that and then click on create class. We're not joining a class here, we are just creating one. Once you click on that, you get this pop-up in the middle of the screen that asks you to name your class and give a couple of more details. I'm just going to set this one up here with a false year 7 music class ID. Under section, I'm going to put key stage 3 because that's what I use this for. I use that part to differentiate between my key stages. I will then put the subject music, obviously, because being a music teacher, that's what I would put in there. And if there's a set room number for that group, then we'll put that in there as well. I'll then click create, and what Classroom will then do is kind of whirs around for a little bit and has a little bit of a think about it, because that's what technology does, and then eventually it will pop up and take you to your Classroom home screen. And when I say the home screen, I mean the home stream of that class you have just created. So there it is, ready for you to use. So now we have the class, now we need the students. So there are a couple of ways to get students to join your class. The first way is the one that I use most commonly, and it's for those groups where there are a lot of people in the class, because otherwise you've got to send lots and lots of emails, and if you're doing that for multiple classes it can take a long time. So what I do is on your stream there's a little sort of like 4-cornered box next to the class code. You'll see it there on the screen. I click that little box like I'm doing in the video here, and you get this big pop-up with a giant version of your class code. Now what I'd normally do is I'd project that onto my main board at the front of the classroom and get students to either write that code down, or if your school allows the use of phones in your lessons, they could photograph that, or even if they have Google Classroom on their mobile device already, they can join the classroom there and then. Okay, so that's really nice and easy. The second easiest way to do it is to go into the People tab in your classroom, and this is for if you've got a slightly smaller class where it's nice and easy for you to pick out the people that are going to be in there and you don't have to repeat the process too many times. When you're on the People tab, the top section there will be the teachers of that class. Now at this point it will only be, in this case, me, as you can see in the example, or it will be obviously you in the class that you have made, and there won't be any students written underneath it, just like in this example here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Add Student button here, and I get a new pop-up, and in that pop-up you put in the email address of the student that is going to be invited to the class, and you can add as many different names to that list in this one screen as you like, and then you just click invite. What will then happen is the students that you have selected will get an email with a link in there to join that class, or indeed if they go into their Google Classroom, they'll see a grayed out version of the class box on their Google Classroom home screen, and they can click accept invitation. It's as simple as that, and then those students are in your class. Okay, the classroom is set, the students are in, it's time to set some work for them. So the easiest option here is just to go straight to the classwork tab and click on create. Here you'll get a short list of particular options. If you just want to give them some information, select material, and the way that you put attachments on for assignments, which I will be showing you shortly, will work for this. The only difference is you want to set a deadline for it. You could do quizzes, but of course I've said already there's a separate video for that one, so please go and check that one out. I will link it above and below for you. We're just going to go for a standard assignment. So I click on that and it takes me to a new window within Google Classroom, and I start inputting the information I need the students to know about the work that they are being asked to do. So you'll give it a title, you will give some description to the task as well, and you can put as much or a little detail into this as you like, and it will depend on what else you are going to add to this assignment, and also how much detail you've already given them in lessons as well. You will of course want to add a deadline or a due date to the assignment as well, and you can set a time for this as well as a date. So if particularly if you're working with sixth formers who might do work in perhaps the morning and you have them in the afternoon, you never know, they might be either organised to have planned to do it in that time, or disorganised and realise they have to do it in that couple of hours before the lesson. Either way, they can see what time it is due as well as what date it is due, and that will actually appear on a Google Calendar for them and you as well, so it's really helpful. Once you have that in there, I would also select whether you want it to be marked or not. Now if you don't want it to have a numerical value for marking, that's fine. Where it says marks 100, just change that to unmarked, and you can mark it yourself later on and give it the number mark that you want. What we also want to do with this particular assignment is put in some attachments. Now you could just assign this as it is and the students would have to upload and hand in work themselves, okay? But what I want to do with this particular assignment is I want to give them a piece of information to read and then a template document with which to work. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on add, and I'm going to take this from my Google Drive. Now if I was working on a laptop or a PC, I'd of course choose file, but because I'm going to Google Drive, it takes me up to this new dialog box, and I will go through and find the information attachment that I want to give them. I will just click on that and then click insert. It will have a word, it'll have a think while that is going on, and then within a moment it will be there. Okay, now an important thing to check here is when you put attachments on, there are several options for how your students can interact with these documents. Now this is just a piece of information. I don't want them to be able to change anything that is in there. So there is a line just next to where the document is that says students can view this file. I want to leave that as it is because I don't want them to be able to do anything to it. Okay, and we'll talk about one of the other options in that list, which is going to be most useful to us in a moment, because we're now going to put another document in. So once again, I go to add and then go to Google Drive, and this time I'm putting in a document that I've created that has a question I want the students to answer, and it has a little bit more detail in there. You know, my description doesn't really have a lot in there, so more detail is included here, including the question, the number of marks, and where the information is, and a nice big blank space for the students to work in. From here, I will click insert once again, and it will have a where and a think and put the document into the assignment. Now, here is the difference. I want the students to work in this document. I want them to edit this one, but I want them to have their own version of it. So from that same drop down where it says students can view, select that and go down to make a copy for each student. And what that literally does is once you've set the assignment, it creates a copy named for each student in that class. So when you are taking work in, it's automatically named for you and for them, so they can see what has been set and you can see who has done what work without having to wonder if they have remembered to write their name at the top of the document or change the file name to include it. It is done for them. Okay, really nice and easy. From this point, you again have two options. You can either straight away assign it to the class so it appears immediately on the screen, or what I'm going to do here is I'm going to schedule the assignment to go live at the end of what would be first lesson tomorrow morning for this class. and that is Monday morning. So I go to the drop down arrow and I select schedule. I get a little pop-up box that asks me when I want to schedule this to go out. So I'm going to choose Monday 5th of October and I'm going to choose 10:05 a.m. At this point I press schedule, it has a little think and a little whir, and bam, it is there. And at 10:05 a.m. tomorrow morning, that assignment will go live to that newly created class, to that one student that is currently in there. Of course, you would have more students, and they will all get a personalized copy of that work template that I've set for them, as well as being able to see the information document that I attach to it as well. Okay, so one final thing before we finish. I feel it's really important that we know what the students should be seeing and doing when they're doing their work in Google Classroom as well, so we can advise them. So what's just going to happen around me as I speak is a really quick demonstration of a student joining a classroom using a class code and then handing in a piece of work. Okay, so I'll talk it through quickly, but feel free to go back over these steps as you need to. The first thing the student will do is click on the plus symbol, the same as we would do, but they are not given the option to create a class, because that's how the system works. They will be taken straight to the join screen. They will put in the class code, which either they have photographed or written down, or you've emailed them, or whatever, and then they will click join in the top right hand corner. It'll whir around a little bit and they will be taken directly to the stream page of that brand new class. Okay. Now, as you can see in the example that is working around me right now, there is already an assignment set in this brand new classroom, and it's actually the assignment I set earlier in the video. Okay, we have magically transported forward in time to 10:05 in the morning on Monday. What is forward in time for me? I suppose it's backward in time for you, because you're seeing this on Monday afternoon. Go figure. But what this student is then going to do is click in and click view assignment, and they will see the information document that I put in there, and also the template that I have preferred them to use. Now, the student has got several options at this point. Okay, they can work in the template that I have given them, and this, if it is there, should be the preference for them, really. I will point out and say that you should, if you have given them a template, use a Google Doc for this. I meant to mention this earlier in the video, and I should have done, but I did not. If you try using a Microsoft Word document, when they open it and view it, and they open then in Google Docs, it creates a brand new Google Doc, rather than editing the Word document as a .doc or a .docx, which would normally happen in Google Drive. It is a bit of a niggle within Google Classrooms. It's one we can't currently avoid, so please make sure, if you have created the template in Microsoft Word, please make sure that you upload that and change it to a Google Doc before attaching it as a template to an assignment. Now, if the student is not going to use the template, or indeed if you haven't given them a template to use, they will need to upload the work themselves. So all they need to do here from this same screen is click on add or create. Just like happened when I then attached my information and my template earlier on, it will give them the option to go to Google Drive or get a file from their computer, and depending on what they've done, that choice will be up to them. They then find their file, click insert, and it'll whir around for a second and then attach it to that assignment. Following this, they then have to click hand in, which is a button that is just there on the right hand side. A little pop-up dialog will then appear, and they can review the documents that they have got on there, and you should see anything that is attached either by them or the template that you as a teacher has put on there, and then they must click hand in again. Okay, they have to do that for the second time for it to be classed as handed in, and for us as teachers to be able to process that properly. Okay, if you've set a piece of work where there isn't an attachment for them to put on, and it is you just ask them to prepare something physical to bring into the classroom, then the hand in button is slightly different. It is described as mark as done, and what that is doing is it's telling the teacher that they have actually prepared the physical resource that you've asked them to, and that it's there in the lesson, or it's coming with them in the lesson. They have put it in their bag or something, so you know to check and remind them to hand that in when it is there. And just like with handing in, they do have to press that twice, mark as done and mark as done. So there we go, that's kind of like a whistle stop tour of what a student will do to kind of join a classroom and hand in a piece of work in an assignment. And that's it for my basics on Google Classroom. I really hope it's something that you have been able to take something away from, or at the very least have been able to pass this on to a friend or colleague that needs a little bit of help getting themselves set up in Google Classroom. And I hope it's also something you can use to help your students navigate around it as well. I will see you all next on Thursday. Until then, stay well, stay safe. Googleman out.